Bernie Sanders has won the Democrats Living Abroad primary. So this is a primary taking place in over 40 different countries around the world, with American citizens able to vote in those countries and picking Bernie Sanders. Let me give you the breakdown here. First on the numbers. So Sanders won this with a pretty large percentage, 57.9% to Joe Biden at 22.7%. Now, this vote took place over the course of several days between March 3rd and March 10th, I believe. But because there were so many mail-in ballots, there wasn't actually the final count wasn't released until today. Let me give you some more here from Politico. Turnout was up 15% over 2016. Democrats Abroad said for the group's largest recorded primary. In-person voting took place from March 3rd through March 10th at sites around the world. Voters could also submit electronic ballots. Americans living in the United Kingdom accounted for the most votes, 5,689, with Germany, Canada, France, and Mexico rounding out the top five. Now, this to me shouldn't be all that surprising. As somebody who lives abroad and is not American, but I can see if an American is living in Canada, they're going to be a little more open to the idea of single-payer healthcare, having experienced it here. First, to that point, let me share Brianna Joy Gray's tweet here. She's the press secretary for Bernie Sanders. Looks like people who live abroad aren't so easily sold on the "a better world is pie in the sky" line of thinking. Many of them experience universal health care, free public college, and generous family leave childcare policies firsthand, and they love it. That's right. So this shows you how much perspective helps when it comes to voting. If all you have ever experienced is a life where you have to pay out of pocket for healthcare, or your healthcare is tied to your employer, then that seems normal to you. That world is normal. What's normal to me, as someone living in Canada, is never thinking about healthcare. If I need healthcare, I get it. But it's never on my mind, because I don't have to pay for it. I don't have to talk to insurance companies. I don't have to do anything outside of just getting healthcare. But for so many Americans, your private insurance system is normal. This is just what normal life is. So it's hard for you to even be able to imagine what it's like to live in a system where healthcare is never on your mind unless you actually need it. And that's just one example. But clearly, Americans living all over the world have experienced different forms of social democracy where they actually have these sorts of I guess, benefits that Americans don't get to experience. And just on healthcare, because I do talk about this quite a bit, or I talked about it quite a bit during the primary. I just want people to understand what the kind of freedom that a single payer system affords you. Because you are seeing it right now with people that have their healthcare tied to an employer. I mean, what's happening right now with this crisis is exposing how broken or rigged that system is. Because once you lose that job, and it's expected that about 20% or more of Americans are going to be out of a job, or going to be unemployed because of this, their healthcare is gone. So even if you had great healthcare through your employer, even if that was the case, and even if you could afford the out-of-pocket expenses to be able to get that healthcare, it's gone. That's it. Whereas under a single-payer system, you have healthcare guaranteed to you regardless of what you're doing in your life. So maybe you're going to school. Maybe you're starting a business. Maybe you just lost your job. Maybe you don't like your job. Maybe you don't like your boss. You want to leave your job, but you're afraid of leaving in the American system because you'll lose your health insurance. Well, in other countries that have healthcare guaranteed to you, you can leave that job and find something better because you have healthcare guaranteed to you and you don't have to worry about losing it. And the freedom when it comes to choice, when it comes to doctor, because you're in a single-payer system in Canada or other single-payer universal systems, you have complete freedom of choice. So you can go to any walk-in clinic, get health care. Again, no out-of-pocket expenses, nothing. Have a family doctor that isn't stuck to a certain network. There is no in-network, out-of-network, because it's all the same network. It's a single-payer system. So you have your family doctor regardless of your situation. So and another point that actually I should mention more often, under a single payer system, your Congress people would be on the same healthcare that you are. So, I mean, think of it. If that's the case, how much are they really, like, if a single payer system were to pass, how much would they really work to undermine it, knowing that they would have the same healthcare that everyone else does? So this is something else. Like a lot of these people in Congress, they live in a glass house. They have no idea what life is like for the average person because they have all these things guaranteed to them already. But under a single payer system, the wealthiest people, the people that represent you in Congress, and yourself would all be on the same healthcare system. So there are just endless benefits. And I mean, at this point, during this crisis, it's impossible to deny that how much better a single payer system would be. And you'll even have, though, just to nip this ridiculous argument, people like Joe Biden during the debate, the most recent debate, talking about, oh, well, Italy has universal health care, and look what's happening there. Any healthcare system under a pandemic that doesn't respond as quickly as they should is going to be impacted. No healthcare system in the world, regardless of what it is, can all of a sudden produce more doctors that didn't exist before, because it's not about the healthcare system in a pandemic situation. It's about being able to keep people home so that more people aren't impacted. This is why they talk about flattening the curve, because if you have all these people at once needing healthcare, yes, it's going to impact any system. But if you're able to keep people home and keep the demand in a way where it doesn't have everybody going to healthcare all at once, then you are able to flatten the curve and be able to deal with that situation in whether it's in the Italian healthcare system or in Canada or wherever. But that is the issue with the pandemic right now when it comes to Italy. It's not about their healthcare system. It's about the fact that they didn't respond quick enough when this pandemic began to spread in their country. But look, I'll have a separate video when it comes to testing. This may be less of a healthcare issue and more just about a government response overall. But Canada right now has tested about, I think, 255,000 Canadians. 100,000, about 100,000 Canadians, whereas America has tested about 255,000 Americans. That is, I mean, this is crazy. There are 10 times more Americans than Canadians. So if the American response was proportional to what Canada has right now, and again, I think more Canadians should be tested. It's not like we're doing this perfectly either. But if the American response was proportional to what Canada has done in terms of testing, there would be over a million Americans tested right now. But there's only 255,000 compared to Canada at about 100,000. So again, that's maybe less of a healthcare issue and more of a government response or lack of response issue when it comes to the U.S. But I just want to give you perspective here, because clearly these Democrats abroad had some perspective when it came to their votes, and a lot more Americans could use that perspective.